Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're exploring something really interesting, this idea that for, seasoned executives, your biggest impact might actually still be ahead of you. We're talking about using all that experience, those decades of expertise, to make a real difference for social change.
It's a powerful concept.
Yeah, exactly. We're focusing on C-suite leaders, sometimes called Encore executives, and how they're perfectly placed, really, to help out in the nonprofit sector where there's this critical need.
Mm-hmm. The second summit idea.
Right. Climbing that second summit. Using corporate wisdom for community legacy. We'll be looking closely at insights from Laura Johnson, her Legacy Multiplier series, Your Executive Advantage. So our mission today, unpack why your hard-won knowledge is so incredibly valuable right now for transforming communities. Let's get into it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it really is a critical time for nonprofits. The data, well, it paints a pretty stark picture. A sector under huge strain. I've started calling it a kind of hidden crisis in leadership. Burnout is alarmingly high. Something like 95% of nonprofit leaders say it's a major concern.
95%, that's huge.
It is. And right now, 2025, we're seeing nonprofit CEO turnover actually hitting record highs.
Okay, so it sounds like a big problem, but you're saying this wave of departures, it's actually an opportunity. That's an interesting way to frame it.
It is. Look at the numbers.
Yeah.
Maybe up to a quarter of all nonprofit executive directors, CEOs, they're planning to leave their jobs in the next 6 months.
A quarter in 6 months.
Yeah. And some estimates suggest up to 75%, 3/4 of U.S. nonprofit leaders might leave in the next 5 to 10 years. So this isn't just a few openings, it's a massive shift. It creates this huge demand for experienced strategic leaders, the kind of leaders corporate veterans often are.
So it's a vacuum waiting to be filled by the right kind of expertise.
Exactly. A chance to build more sustainable organizations or, really reshape existing ones.
And it's not just about finding people, right? You mentioned a competency gap, too. What does that look like?
That's just as important. The competency gap is, well, it's striking. Only 29% of nonprofits actually have a written succession plan. Think about that.
Wow. Less than a third?
And almost 49% of chief executives say they don't have the right board members to build community trust. So many are struggling with basic governance, oversight, things corporate leaders often take for granted, frankly.
Okay.
Plus, you have 70% citing board involvement in fundraising as a real challenge. And then there are broader issues like keeping volunteers engaged.
Right. I can see how those areas, strategic oversight, raising funds, managing stakeholders, are a direct match for executive experience. But hang on, what about technology? You hear so much about AI and tech solving operational issues, data analysis. Doesn't that reduce the need for, experienced human leadership?
That's a really good question. And it cuts to the core of it, I think. Tech is great for automating tasks. AI can crunch numbers. But leadership, especially in the nonprofit world, it involves these really complex human dynamics. It needs sophisticated judgment, navigating really tricky stakeholder relationships, making big strategic calls when things are uncertain, driving real organizational change. Culture change.
Things an algorithm can't really replicate.
Exactly. That comes from decades of experience.
Mm-hmm.
It's wisdom, not just data processing.
Okay, so this is where it gets really interesting for our listeners who have that corporate background. How does that experience translate? Because you're saying it's not just useful, it's actually a strategic advantage.
Yes, absolutely. And it applies more directly than people often realize. There are maybe 4 key areas where this plays out. First, financial stewardship at scale. It's more than just managing a budget. In nonprofits, you have things like restricted versus unrestricted funds.
Ah, right. That's a big one. Doesn't really exist on a standard corporate P&L.
Not in the same way, no. But it's absolutely central to nonprofit strategy, sustainability, maneuverability. Or think about endowment management that requires a much longer view than quarterly earnings reports.
Definitely a different mindset,
Yeah.
Understanding different kinds of capital, the rules. Okay, what's the second area?
Second is systems thinking and process optimization. That operational discipline honed in the corporate world, supply chains, performance metrics, that can tackle the chronic inefficiencies you sometimes see in nonprofits. I heard about a former logistics exec who helped a food bank cut waste by like 30% just by applying basic just-in-time principles.
Wow.
Yeah. That instinct for scalable systems, repeatable processes, it can totally transform how much an organization can actually do.
I can easily see that. Moving beyond just passion, which is essential, but adding that layer of operational polish makes sense. What's third?
Third, stakeholder relations and strategic communication. You're used to managing complex groups. investors, employees, customers, regulators. Well, in a nonprofit, you're coordinating donors, volunteers, the people you serve, community partners. It's a direct parallel. The complexity is similar, just, different players. So that ability to build consensus, communicate clearly, strategically, it's incredibly valuable.
Right. Different audience, same skill set, essentially.
Pretty much. And finally, number 4, strategic planning under uncertainty. You've navigated market swings, competition, economic downturns. That builds resilience. And nonprofit leaders desperately need that resilience when they're facing funding challenges, shifting community needs. You've seen storms before. That experience is pure gold.
That paints a very clear picture of why this experience is so needed. Okay, but for an executive thinking, all right, I'm interested, how do they find the right fit? Because not all nonprofit roles offer the same potential for impact, right? How do you assess where you can make the biggest difference?
That's such a crucial question. Finding the right second summit, as you put it. For high-impact board roles, I'd suggest looking for a few things. One is established organizations in transition. Maybe they have a strong mission, but their operations are a bit dated, or they need a strategic refresh.
So, good bones, but needing renovation.
Kind of, yeah. You get maximum leverage for your strategic thinking there without having to build everything from the ground up. Also, look for organizations with financial stability but growth potential. They have decent funding, maybe diversified streams, but they haven't really hit their stride in terms of scale. Your business development background could be huge there.
Right, helping them punch above their weight.
Exactly. And finally, seek out nonprofits that already have clear measurement capabilities. If they're already tracking outcomes, not just activities, your expertise in performance management can help them optimize what they're doing. Really sharpen their focus on impact.
Okay, those are the green lights. What about the other side? What are the red flags? The situations maybe to steer clear of?
Good point. Definitely things to watch out for. First, chronic leadership turnover. If an organization burns through executives every, say, 18 to 24 months. Yeah, that usually points to deeper systemic problems, maybe governance, maybe funding instability. It's going to be hard to make quick progress there.
A symptom of something bigger.
Often, yes.
Yeah.
Second, watch out for mission drift or an unclear value proposition. If the board members themselves can't clearly tell you what makes the organization unique, what its specific impact is.
How can you help strategically if the strategy isn't clear?
Precisely. Your efforts will just get bogged down. And third, maybe a bit more subtle, is resistance to professional management. Some nonprofits are very attached to informal ways of doing things. If that clashes with the kind of systematic approach you bring, it's going to be frustrating. You'll feel like you're constantly swimming upstream.
That makes total sense, especially coming from a more structured corporate environment. Okay, let's dig a bit deeper into the board itself. What does the research tell us? What actually makes a nonprofit board highly effective versus just AFAL?
Yeah, there's good research on this. It points to what we can call 5 pillars of board excellence. First is strategic leadership. Effective boards aren't just approving things. They really understand the organization's work, the environment it operates in, the key trends, the policies. They're actively thinking strategically.
They're engaged in the what's and why, not just the how much.
Exactly. Second, strong financial oversight. And this is more than just looking at last quarter's numbers. It's understanding the forward-looking indicators, the risks, the long-term financial picture.
Being proactive, not reactive.
That's it. Third, mission alignment. Every decision, every discussion needs to be checked against the core purpose. Does this actually advance our mission?
Keeping the why front and center.
Always. Fourth, and this is a big opportunity area, community connection. Research suggests only about a third, maybe 32% of boards really prioritize staying deeply connected to and knowledgeable about the community they serve.
Only a third. Wow.
Yeah. So executives with strong stakeholder management skills can make a huge difference here, building those bridges.
Bringing the outside in.
Precisely. And the fifth pillar is performance measurement. Establishing metrics that show impact the actual change created, not just activity, like how many workshops were held.
Right, measuring what matters. Okay, so even with all this corporate experience, it's not a simple cut and paste, is it? What are some common mistakes executives make when they step into this nonprofit world?
That's a really important point. Awareness here is key. One common mistake is overemphasizing efficiency over effectiveness. In business, you're often laser-focused on cutting costs, maximizing efficiency. But in a nonprofit, a super low overhead ratio might look good on paper, But if it means you're underpaying staff or skimping on necessary infrastructure, it could actually hurt your mission impact.
So the metrics aren't always directly transferable.
Not always. Effectiveness for the mission is the goal, not just efficiency for its own sake. Similarly, managing volunteers. That's totally different from managing paid employees. Their motivations are different.
Right. It's about doing the right things for the mission, not just doing things efficiently. A different bottom line.
Exactly. Another pitfall. Underestimating regulatory complexity. Nonprofit compliance is, well, it's a maze. Nuanced IRS rules, state oversight, specific grant requirements. It's very different from corporate governance. You can't just assume your corporate legal knowledge covers it.
You need to learn a whole new rule book.
You really do. And finally, misunderstanding stakeholder dynamics. How a nonprofit board works with volunteer members driven by diverse motivations is fundamentally different from a corporate board focused on shareholder value. The power dynamics, the decision-making culture, it can be a real adjustment. It's purpose-driven, not profit-driven at its core.
Okay, so bringing it all together, what does this mean for actually transforming the impact an organization has? It's clearly a shift in thinking, not just a simpler version of corporate life. How do you measure success when the goal is mission, not profit?
Yeah, the big picture is optimizing for mission achievement, and that requires a sophisticated approach. It starts with having a clear impact measurement framework. Central to that is developing a solid theory of change. Think of it like a strategic map for social impact. It clearly lays out, if we do this specific activity, say a job training program, how do we logically expect that to lead to this specific outcome, like improved employment rates, and ultimately contribute to a larger long-term change?
So it's building that logical chain from what you do to the change you create.
Precisely. It's about being intentional and evidence-based. It also means embracing data-driven decision-making, using performance dashboards, tracking metrics for both operations and mission effectiveness. That discipline is universal.
Using data to steer the ship towards impact.
Absolutely. And then there's stakeholder value creation, really defining what value means for each group, donors, beneficiaries, partners, volunteers, and making sure your activities actually deliver that value.
And beyond just the organization's internal focus, what about that broader community leadership role?
That community leadership strategy is where you see truly transformative long-term impact. One part is asset-based community development.
Okay, what does that mean exactly?
It means instead of just focusing on a community's needs or problems, you actively look for and leverage its existing strengths, skills, resources, relationships. It's about building on what's already there, seeing the glass as half full.
Mobilizing existing assets, not just bringing in outside help.
Right. Then there's policy and advocacy integration, using your understanding of how systems work, how regulations function, to help the nonprofit engage effectively with policymakers to advocate for change.
Moving beyond direct service to systemic change.
Exactly. And finally, creating sustainable funding models, applying that business development mindset to build diverse revenue streams, maybe earned income, social enterprise, strategic partnerships, to make the organization less reliant on any single source and more resilient long-term.
Okay, this is all fantastic context. Let's get really practical now. We want to give listeners actionable steps. If an executive is ready to jump in, what are some things they can do in the first, say, 30 to 60 days to start making a tangible difference?
Yeah, the great thing is that executive skills can make an impact surprisingly quickly. In that first month or two, you could lead a governance assessment, do a thorough review of the board structure, committees, how decisions get made. Maybe use a framework from an organization like BoardSource, which specializes in nonprofit governance.
Get the house in order at the top.
Exactly. You could also initiate a financial system audit. Look at the reporting, the internal controls, cash flow management, implement something like corporate-style monthly financial reviews, looking at variances.
Give them that financial rigor straight away.
Definitely. Also, develop a strategic communication plan, create some consistent messaging for donors, volunteers, partners. So often, nonprofit communication is kind of ad hoc. Your experience here is invaluable.
Clear, consistent messaging.
Right. And performance metrics integration. Start establishing baseline metrics for both efficiency and impact. Create a simple dashboard so everyone can see how things are tracking.
Start measuring what matters right from the start.
Yep. And finally, maybe do some stakeholder mapping. Just document who all the key relationships are, funders, partners, community groups, and identify opportunities for strengthening those ties or building new ones. Your network instantly becomes an asset.
Those are some really solid, quick wins. But thinking bigger picture, beyond the initial splash, What does a longer-term plan look like, say over 12, 18 months, even a few years, for an executive really wanting to build a lasting legacy?
Great question. Looking further out, you can think in phases. Year one is often about foundation building. That means completing a full organizational assessment, developing a real strategic plan, implementing those upgraded financial systems we talked about, setting up robust impact measurement, maybe starting a board recruitment and development program, and definitely working on diversifying funding.
So getting the core systems really strong and aligned.
Exactly. Then, year two could be about capacity expansion. This is where you might launch strategic partnerships, maybe implement new technology to improve efficiency or reach, develop succession plans for key roles, maybe build out advocacy capabilities, and work on increasing the organization's visibility.
Building on that solid foundation to grow reach and influence.
Right. And then, maybe year three and beyond is about legacy impact. This is where the focus really shifts. It could involve mentoring the next generation of nonprofit leaders, documenting key knowledge so it doesn't leave when people do, maybe establishing an endowment or reserve fund for long-term stability.
Thinking about sustainability beyond your own tenure.
Absolutely. Creating program models that other organizations can replicate, building sustainable leadership pipeline within the organization, and maybe even the sector. It becomes about multiplying the impact.
That's a really powerful progression. Okay, final key question then. How do we actually know if all these efforts are working? In this nonprofit context, what should you be measuring to gauge success? What are the real indicators of progress?
That's crucial, isn't it? Measuring success looks different. You need a mix of indicators. For board effectiveness indicators, you look at practical things. Board meeting attendance are people showing up. Aim for 85% plus. Committee participation levels. Are they making progress on the strategic plan goals? How's the annual fundraising doing against targets? You can even do stakeholder satisfaction surveys. What do key partners think?
So, tangible measures of board engagement and governance health. What about the organization overall?
Right. For organizational health metrics, you track financial stability, things like how many months of operating reserves do they have, program efficiency, maybe cost per person served, though carefully, as we discussed. Also, staff retention and satisfaction. Are people staying? Are they engaged? Same for volunteers' engagement and retention rates. And how many new community partnerships have been formed? These show if the organization itself is healthy and running well.
The engine is humming.
Exactly. But the ultimate measure is mission impact measurements. This is the core of it. Are the beneficiary outcomes improving? Are the lives of the people you serve actually getting better in measurable ways? Are community-level indicators related to your mission moving in the right direction? Did the organization influence any policy changes? Are other organizations adopting your best practices? And what are the signs of long-term sustainability for the impact itself?
So it's really about tracking that real-world change.
That's the bottom line, yes. Moving beyond just counting activities to demonstrating actual meaningful change.
Well, as we wrap up this deep dive, it's just so clear. There's this incredible, maybe sometimes overlooked opportunity for executives with deep experience to make a profound difference. Your executive career doesn't have to be the end of your professional story. It can actually be the launch pad for a legacy of community transformation, something that might even feel more meaningful than corporate wins, climbing that second summit, as you said.
A truly powerful redefinition of impact.
Absolutely. So if this conversation has sparked something for you, if you're ready to explore more, we definitely encourage you to subscribe to Your Executive Advantage on Substack. You'll get strategic insights like these delivered right to you every Tuesday morning. And you can also connect with Laura Johnson, the CEO of LLJ Careers, LLC, as you think about your own journey toward making that kind of lasting impact.